Hello, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. So, I just got done watching season 3 of 13 Reasons Why. Now, if you haven't seen it yet, I suggest you go watch it first and then come back and watch this video. For those of you that have, well, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm a little bit disappointed with the overall message of this season because, for the most part, what I saw from this season was almost like watching a long version of Clue, right? Where one guy dies, we have a whole list of suspects, and then it becomes like okay, who could it be? Where were they? And what did they kill the guy with? Kind of situation, right? So it's like Mrs. Peacock with the candlestick in the lounge room or whatever. Except for the fact that we all know that Bryce Walker dies in the pier. Okay. So I don't know. It seemed to be very highly focused around that, and each episode talks about uh, different situations each character is experiencing and how that could relate to their motives to kill Bryce. Right. So maybe one episode they're talking about Tony. Next episode they're talking about Justin or Jessica or Alex or Tyler or whatever. Right. It seems like they have a dedicated episode for each suspect. And then they introduced this new narrator, so to speak, called, I think it's Ali or Annie. Sorry, Annie is her name. And she's kind of narrating the story from the perspective of an interrogation room. So obviously, this is later on in the situation, like it's been like towards the end of the investigation where she's doing this narration, right? And so she's now replaced the Hannah Baker, from the first two seasons, which is fair enough. Hannah Baker has died. She's told her story, and other people have filled in the gaps in season two. Right, so we kind of got to move on for Hannah Baker. So I'm okay with the whole Annie coming in and telling or being the narrator of this. It's just that it seemed, very crime driven. Like who did it, why did they do it, that kind of thing. The one thing I did like about this season, though, was basically giving the mindset that even if you've done something terrible in your life, you can still redeem yourself. But what I found in this season is that you've got to do it a certain way, otherwise, it doesn't work, right? So, the thing that we see with Bryce is that he tries to gather redemption from the people he's hurt. And I think if you think about it, that's probably not the people you should be seeking redemption from. I think being a better person and trying not to reoffend is a form of redemption. And I think that's what Bryce is trying to understand within himself, that he has to learn that he can't fix what he's done wrong. He can only be better going forward. All right. So I like that part of season three in the sense of, he was a terrible man. He did terrible things. He was given a second chance. He didn't go to jail. Right. But everybody hates him. Right. So he's trying to work out a way to get back, not necessarily on good terms with everybody because he knows he's screwed up, but he's trying to redeem himself so that he can be a better man for the rest of his life, which I think is a nice thing to put in there. And that's kind of why it's disappointing as well that, they killed him off so quickly. But at the same time, at least they put it in there. They gave a chance for a bad guy to redeem themselves and become a good guy. Okay. Now, what's also disappointing is basically who ends up murdering him. Well, it happens to be a number of people, actually, when I think about it. It's kind of like a contribution, even though it's really one person that does the final kill, so to speak, but it's a contribution from probably two people specifically, but there is a third person that's involved. Um, so if you haven't watched all the episodes yet and you don't know what the final outcome is, you probably should stop the video right now because I'm about to talk about that. Okay, so for those people who have seen the final part, obviously you know it's Alex and you know it's Jessica, right? That are at the pier, and that Alex basically pushes or basically throws a wounded Bryce into the water. Okay. Now, why is Bryce wounded? Well, we find out that it's from what's his name, Zach. Pushes he basically beats him up before that, right? And why? Well, Bryce basically hurt his leg during a football game, right? Basically tied his leg, took out his leg. Now, why did Bryce do that? Well, it happened to be that Zach was supporting his ex-girlfriend through an abortion, right? And so basically Bryce finds out that night that from this girl that she was pregnant with his child, but she basically had it aborted. And then when he says, okay, I'm sorry that you had to go through that alone, she says, no, I wasn't alone. Zach helped me through it. So that adds anger to Bryce, right, which allows him to target Zach on the field. Then basically a whole fight starts and all this other stuff goes down and the whole game is disbanded and that's the end of it, right? So before the game, though, basically, which I think is really stupid on his part, but Bryce goes to speak to Jessica. Now, Jessica has confronted him a number of times over this period, saying, I'm better now. I want you to know that you didn't break me, blah, blah, blah. So Bryce, knowing this, kind of wants to get off his chest confessing what he did wrong to her and that he's really sorry. And he does it in a Hannah Baker type way. He records a tape, right? Old school tape. So he goes out to Jessica before the football game, says, hey, can you come see me at the pier after the football game, right? I want to give you something. He goes, bring over whoever you want, okay? So Jessica didn't really agree at that point, but he knew she was going to go there because, curiosity kills the cat, right? So that's basically how it's all set up. Zach goes there first because of what Bryce did to his leg, beats him to a pulp. Alex and Jessica get there. Basically, Bryce says, hey, I want to give you the tape. They get the tape from him. And then Alex tries to help him up, to which he's in a lot of pain. This is Bryce. And because he's in a lot of pain, he's angry at everybody, because he kind of blames them for the situation he's in, especially Jessica because she started the brawl that allowed gave him the opportunity to attack Zach, which then Zach attacked him. So if she hadn't done that, then he wouldn't attack Zach, and then Zach wouldn't attack him, and he wouldn't be in that situation, right? So I think that's kind of why he's angry at Jessica. But the thing is, because he's angry at Jessica, they think that he hasn't improved, right? He hasn't learnt his lesson from all the things that he's done in the past. So Alex looks into his eyes and goes, oh, he's got that evil look about him, right? And at that point, he's angered because he thinks that Bryce hasn't learned his lesson. And so he shoves him in rage into the water, right? To which Bryce drowns because he's got a broken leg, he's got a broken arm, and he can't swim up to the surface to save himself. And obviously Jessica and Alex aren't jumping in there to save him, so he drowns. So basically the rest of that becomes a bit of a cover-up, right? So we have each suspect getting suspected over time, and there's people covering for other people and not telling the whole story. So we get basically no one's really telling the story as it actually happened. And so this Annie girl kind of is like the facilitator of what the true story is, but even towards the end, she kind of lies about a few things to protect what's his name? Clay. To protect Clay. Because Clay is found out to be the main suspect. Now, why is he the main suspect through all of this? Well, number one, he sent a message that night saying that he wanted Bryce dead. His mother highly suspected him because she knew that he resented Bryce for what he had done to Hannah Baker, which forced her to kill herself. So she thinks that, Clay has a high motive to want to kill him. And so he becomes an early suspect, Clay. And then based on the fact that that night he's driving around in the area where Bryce dies, right? They kind of sit there and think that he must have done it, especially considering that he actually texted Bryce that night to say, I'm going to kill you, right? Even though Clay just meant it out of anger. But it looked suspect, right? So Clay's like the main suspect for probably half the series. And then towards the end, basically, what's her name? Annie comes in and says, I can tell you why it's not Clay. And she misdirects the police to the point where they're pointing it at this Montgomery De La Cruz guy, which happens to be Bryce's right-hand man, I guess, in the first or second season, I think, at least. And the reason why he pins it on this Montgomery De La Cruz is because he sexually assaulted, what's his name? Tyler. He sexually assaulted Tyler. So, they're able to pin a sexual assault on him already because he actually really did that. And then on top of it, they just say, okay, we'll pin the murder on him as well. So they put the double whammy on him. And then we find out he dies anyway inside of his jail cell. Probably from maybe sexual assault from somebody else, or maybe someone else murdered him, who knows. We never really find that out. So this is what this Annie does. She misdirects the police, right? Then in the very last episode, we basically find out that everyone kind of knew that it was Jessica and Alex that night, right, that were basically guilty of the crime. And they spend probably most of that time trying to misdirect the police or put them on the wrong track. So it took them a while to get everybody on even keel so that, they could get their story straight, so that they could basically misdirect the police to point to this De La Cruz guy, this Montgomery De La Cruz. But they did, all right? Now, the very end of the season, we know that Alex's dad, who happens to be the deputy, I think, of the department, is kind of onto the fact that his son was involved. Well, at least we get that perception that, he knows that his son did something. And so even he's covering up stuff. You see him at the end burning stuff. I'm assuming that's evidence that basically would point to his son. And then even when he's giving grace at the end and saying he's thankful, we should be thankful that, we're not in any trouble and all this kind of stuff, indicating to Alex that he knows, things of that nature. But then he tells his son he loves him and all that other stuff. So clearly he's going to protect his son. But I just thought, what is the perspective of this season? Or what is the objective? Are we saying to people that, it's okay to get revenge on people, that have done bad things to other people? And if so, it's okay to cover it up? I didn't think that the whole message of this season really made sense. And I always thought that this series as a whole, in season 1 and 2, was about teenagers learning the best way of coping with certain situations, right? So that's kind of what you get from season 1 and 2. It creates a discussion topic between parents and their children, or teenagers and maybe school teachers or whoever is the support system for an individual teenager. That's kind of what this, or the first 2 seasons at least, addressed. Whereas with this season, I didn't know where they were going with this. It felt like let's not worry about the messaging anymore. We just need to get an end to all of this, or what we think is an end. And so let's go with a revenge season where we get revenge on Bryce Walker. But then at the same time, they got Bryce Walker trying to seek redemption. So it's a very confusing season, or at least for me it was. I'm not sure what anyone else thinks, but yeah, I found it very confusing. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on the 3rd season of 13 Reasons Why. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you all next time.